we've used the same criteria pretty much since our start, which is it new? Is it interesting? Like, are they doing something novel? That's number one. Number two, are they responsibly sourcing their ingredients? And then three, does it look good? It's important to us. We have a small space. It's about the design and the experience. So the things on shelf, have to align with that.
This is Taste. I'm your host, Matt Rodbard. Emily Schildt wants food shopping to be a more fun and mind-expanding experience. And with her company, Pop-Up Grocer, she's getting customers closer to that distinction. Emily is back in our studio to talk about some of her favorite products she's selling at her amazing New York City store. She also tells us how she sorts through thousands of new brands to land on her always rotating shelves. Also on the show is the founder of one of Emily's favorite brands. PJ Monte is behind Monte's Fine Foods, a historically rich and legit incredible New York City pasta sauce company. PJ has an amazing story to tell, and we get into how he took his family's sauce recipe, made famous at their restaurant on Long Island, and hustled it onto the shelves of major retailers. Finally in this episode, Tu Nguyen, aka Thuy De Bay, speaks about her colorful debut cookbook, Dion, the salty, sour, sweet, and spicy flavors of Vietnamese cooking. Emily Schildt, welcome back to This Is Taste. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me back.
I'm excited to talk about Pop-Up Grocer, the world of CPG, the emerging world, the challenges. I know many listeners are in the industry, and so we all feel there's some economic headwinds, wouldn't you say?
Yes, putting it lightly, perhaps, but yes.
I mean, just off the top, do you think there are too many products being sold?
That's a tough one for me to say yes to because I'm in the business of curating new products endlessly. So I would love for them to constantly be new and innovated upon. I would say yes, but in the way that there's always been too much. I mean, within recent years anyway, right? 30,000 new products are launched every year. 90% of those fail, so 10% continue to exist. And I think that's just, the nature of the business, the life cycle of products for the last 10 years or so.
I mean, those are the same statistics for restaurants as well. So I think it's always going to be a challenge to make it to day 365. I guess my question was a little more about there feels like there's certain categories, and I don't want you to say which categories because I can't even speculate, but it feels like there was a lot of money going to a small amount of categories. Yeah. And there's a lot of white space in other categories. Do you still feel that's the same case?
Yeah, I mean, yes, I think money tends to go where there have been major exits. So for example, right now we're seeing a ton of new tomato sauces as a result of one of the largest CPG exits in recent history.
With Rao's.
Right, with Rao's. A few years ago, it was with protein bars due to, a 5-year, $600 million exit for RX Bar. So again, I think, that is just the behavior of the industry and of venture capital specifically. But I think that innovation, I would say, is pretty well distributed. We're seeing new products spin up in every category. It's just a little more concentrated in ones where there have been recent successes that are of interest to the funders.
Yeah, and I walk the floor every year of Fancy Food Show, and I go to Expo West. And, there's so much hope in those booths, when you're trying to launch a product. What's the biggest challenge for founders who are maybe sitting at a booth in one of the emerging aisles where they don't have possibly, capital from institutions, but maybe they're just friends and family or just bootstrapping? What do you see right now?
I mean, it's increasingly an impossible industry in which to succeed bootstrapping. I mean, if you want to be a small business, then certainly you can exist at farmers markets or indie stores and, make a decent income for your family. But if you want to make it big time, that's not something that can be bootstrapped. And so that's what's really tough right now. And I would say is kind of the macro challenge is just the economic climate and thus the fundraising climate specifically. It's incredibly challenging for brands to get funding, and the milestone, the sort of point at which they need to succeed in order to be looked at by an investor keeps moving. So, it used to be you need to do 5 million annual in sales, you need to do 10 million, and now it might be 15, 20.
Yeah.
And that's impossible to do without the capital to grow and to reach the audience in order to make that.
Yeah, I wanted to start the convo with some real talk because I think, there's a lot of positivity too, and I'm going to segue to that, but thanks for sharing. From the consumer side, there hasn't been a better time to go grocery shopping, and be it at Publix, Meijer, ShopRite, or the small retailers like Pop-Up Grocer. There's so many cool brands launching. There's problems are being solved daily, and there's just pure delight in buying products that, I say it all the time, it is a affordable luxury to go in and pay under $20 for a new box of dates or a brand new tomato sauce. So when I walk into Pop-Up, I have such I feel great. I feel excited. Tell us, what is Pop-Up Grocer for those who don't know, and tell us about your model, which I think is really, really smart, and tell us a little bit about your New York City store.
Yeah. Well, first, thank you for saying that it brings you joy and delight, because that really is our intent. That is our mission for consumers, is to just give them a space in which they can have fun, and experiencing new things is fun. So I started Pop-Up Grocer in 2019 as a marketer for CPG brands, and my goal was to give emerging brands in the better-for-you CPG space specifically an efficient path to retail. I wanted to make it easy for them to be on a physical shelf, to reach consumers, but also to reach retailers, buyers at those retailers, investors, media, creators. And that's what we've done over the last 5 years, initially through 30-day pop-ups around the country, but more recently with our permanent store in New York, which opened in March of last year. And that effectively operates as one never-ending pop-up. So every 90 days, we rotate the products in and out and bring the people who visit us, who are international tourists. That's our primary audience, but also locals. And I would say like local tourists, people from Brooklyn coming over as an activity to do to find something new, to discover things they haven't seen before.
It's so interesting you say tourists are our target, and that makes perfect sense, because I'd say even domestic tourists, folks who maybe aren't seeing these products in real life, but read Taste or read Bon Appetit, are clearly on Instagram and see all these brands on their screens, but they don't actually have a place to hold them, which is the genius of Pop-Up Grocer. You're giving all these brands a place to showcase and a place where you can actually buy them.
Right. And it's so interesting to watch because as a founder, I had this intent for the business, and it certainly was to be an efficient path to retail and our first store retailer. But I didn't necessarily envision like being in people's Instagram carousels post their trip to New York. Mm-hmm. Like we're very much on the list of things to do. It's like, go see the Pop-Up Grocer. And so it's just so funny to me to watch people come and take photos outside, and it's very much a destination.
And, I think it should be mentioned, you did an incredible pop-up with Nordstrom last year, and I loved it. And I know those are around the country, and the flagship here in Midtown, you had this it was so cool, the design, and you're really great about that. Do you have any plans to go into other department stores, even big box grocery stores, and kind of do a capsule collection?
Yeah, nothing specific that I can share at this time, but lots of exciting conversations and general plans around bringing Pop-Up Grocer to life within a store. That's always been something that I am really excited about, because ultimately we can and we intend to create our own shopping destination for new products. But how amazing would it be to have a destination within a store that you already go to for your produce and your pantry staples and just as a part of your regular routine.
And just with your eye, your curation, and highlighting a diverse group of founders, run by, I would say BIPOC and female-founded companies too.
Yes, our emphasis is on sourcing products from under-resourced and underrepresented founders. Has been from day one. Majority of the products on our shelf are founded by women.
Very cool. So I want to sprinkle this conversation with Emily's picks because we can't just have this conversation about pop-up and not mention the brands. So we're going to sprinkle it in. And I think the first one I want to ask you, what are some brands that you're highlighting in your cold case? You have a really great, cooler section amongst many other mini sections in the store. But what's cool in the cooler case with you right now?
A product that I'm loving right now is drumroll donuts, specifically the strawberry glaze. Other people are loving it too. We have a hard time keeping it on shelf. I just think they've really nailed the texture of a bad for you donut without, the guilt that's associated with that.
What makes it a little less bad for you?
Well, it has 10 grams of protein. Now that's if you eat the whole pack of 3 donuts, but you'll find that that's very easy to do.
Yeah.
And lower sugar. They use a sugar alternative.
That's good. What's another cooler case item?
I think I'm allowed to share this. Oishi, who's also a longtime partner of ours, their strawberries have just, gone gangbusters, has just come out with tomatoes.
Oh, wow.
So I'm just thinking of anything in the fridge, but those are exceptional. I've never tasted a sweet, more sort of decadent tomato in my life.
Let's talk about categories. What categories have you seen the most growth in terms of growth is a relative term? It could be top line revenue, just like sales off the shelf, or just in general, the diversity of the products being pitched to you. I'd love to get your take on what you see as an emerging category right now.
Yeah. Definitely over the last 2 years, the most growth we've seen is in Asian flavors, sauces, spices, some entrees, such as like dumplings. So that we've seen mega growth in. Maybe more of a trend, I would say anything that has protein in it is really big right now. So, we have like a protein drink powder, these protein donuts in many forms, protein cookies, basically anywhere you can put protein, these manufacturers are, and consumers are really going for it.
I love that you mentioned protein. We've written about it on Taste quite a bit in the past year, and it's not just about wellness and eating more protein, but I would say the Ozempic drugs have something to do with it. These drugs are really changing people's lives. And here in the books program, we're definitely leaning into protein books for 26 and 25, which is really cool. I think like we're addressing a need, and I think these drugs are a net positive for our culture. And do you think about the way that these drugs are changing the way we eat?
Yeah, I got this question recently, and I didn't really know how to answer it either. I think we still have consistently seen that people want to indulge. So like Pop-Up Grocer is a THC infused and candy store.
Yeah.
So I think that the overarching trend there for me, or insight there, is that people at the end of the day just want to feel a little good. So maybe as it relates to these drugs, it's that they're trying to find ways where they can still sort of have a bad behavior or have an indulgence while maintaining the diet necessary for them to succeed.
Yeah, I like that answer a lot. I think that's smart because I think we definitely don't want to have prescriptive eating. We don't want to like take the joy out of eating, that Soylent generation.
Right.
Though I have reached for a Soylent before just because you're so busy, but so I get it. I'm not trying to be a bully about Soylent, but I think it's definitely nice to bring joy. Let me ask you about the probiotic soda wars. I've used that term. It's not yours, but I think Pop-Up Grocer was really early in embracing these brands. And, you got Poppy and Olipop as like two of the main, the Coke and the Pepsi. I was just in LA, and literally I'm driving to drop my car off, and like literally entire building is branded with the new Olipop Mountain Dew Wannabe, which is dope. I haven't tried it yet, but it looks pretty great. But it seems that there's going to be less probiotic sodas around at the end of next year. What is your take on this category that has so much money in it right now?
Yeah. I mean, I'm really excited about it. And clearly consumers are as well. Better for you soda from a sales perspective is the beverage that outperforms every other beverage in the fridge.
Wow, that's like more than water, more than sodas.
Yeah. And more than any functional beverage. I mean, I think it's great that they have probiotics, but I think for the general consumer, it's just about it being a nostalgic soda flavor that they've previously enjoyed, and now they don't have to feel bad about enjoying it again. And then obviously, there's incredible marketing power behind both of these brands, and so it's really exciting to be a part of them, to be affiliated with them. So there's a whole movement there, but I think it's really just about a better for you trade up. And that's what we've seen over the last 5 years as far as products that outperform others in our store. It's a familiar format, but just a better version of that.
Yeah, more fiber, less sugar. I would say I love Olipop. That's my guy. And it just like has a really nice, I would say, focus on the real flavor of nostalgia without having to drink all that corn syrup.
Yeah. I think they're both great, but I'm also in the business of like diplomacy,
I know you are.
They're all my friends. I wish them well.
Another Emily's picks. Emily's, I'll call it whatever it is. Emily's array. Condiments. I love walking in to Pop-Up Grocer and seeing a lot of brands that I know, but some I don't know, that are helping us cook better, that are like little pantry stuffers and stocking stuffers for the holidays, actually, I'll call it that. What are some condiments that you like?
The condiments section is my favorite because I am a very basic cook, though a frequent cook, so they're necessary to help my meals feel different day to day. I do love several of the new tomato sauces, if we're categorizing that as a condiment. There's a brand called MONTE'S that's really wonderful. There's also a brand called Saws that's been doing really well. I also have recently tried this product that we have in the store right now called Not Cooks. It's a crispy Italian chili crisp. Obviously, chili crisp has been around for some time. This one's particularly spicy, so I've been enjoying its kick.
Are there any sauces that you can name, like anything like in the tahini, tamari? I'm just saying 2 words, but anything.
We have a pistachio spread. Pistachio's having a moment. It's actually called pistachio, but it's pistachio butter, but it's quite liquidy, so it's really more sauce-like.
Yeah.
We actually have a soft serve flavor in our cafe coming out with that as a drizzle and some crushed pistachios.
Very cool. I love your cafe too. It shouldn't be skipped that when you walk into Pop-Up, you can buy all these great products, but you can also get a great coffee and some pastries. And how do you think about doing cafe service within a grocery store? I think it's really smart.
Yeah, the cafe is a really big opportunity for us, so I'm excited to grow it over the years. Its intent is to integrate the products on shelf so you can sample and trial in a way that's much more exciting than just, having it crushed up in a paper cup.
Yeah.
Though I, love Costco.
The Costco style, right?
So we've integrated, like Magic Spoon in a cocoa cereal latte. We have a cookie milk latte that's made with a brand called Fancy Pants on the menu right now. We did a pretzel crispy treat with FitJoy pretzels. So it's a platform for exposure, just like the business at large for these brands.
Are you still selling a lot of Chamberlain coffee?
Yes, celebrity. We didn't touch on celebrity-driven brands, but
right? Of course.
They do drive traffic, which is great.
Yeah, I remember you had Chamberlain really early, and I remember seeing on Instagram there were lines of folks trying to get in to buy the bags.
Yeah, people love Emma.
Yeah, Emma's great, and I would love to have her on the show one day. I've reached out, and maybe one day that will happen. Our final Emily's picks. What is exciting you that you can buy in a bag? Because I love, there's a snack section. I found out about Confusion Snacks through you. And I thought that like his popcorn to me is some of the best around. I know Erewhon is like crushing with it, and we've had the founder on the show, and I just love to see that trajectory of that company. And you were a very early supporter of that brand. But what comes to mind with snacking?
Yeah, I love Confusion Snacks as well.
Yeah.
They've been with us since we opened 18 months ago, so they're crushing it with us too.
Awesome.
I love a brand. Also popcorn, love a brand called Popcorn for the People. They hire employees with autism. So there's like a give back component, and also the product is just amazing. There's a cheddar flavor that is just out of this world, and they just went through a redesign. Packaging's great, check. I also love Daily Crunch.
Yeah,
they have a dill pickle flavor, and anything that is pickle flavored is a yes for me.
So. Yeah, I love those picks. When you walk into an Erewhon, because I'm sure you do when you're on the West Coast, what do you think? What do you think about that store? Or generally, maybe not walking in, but the way that brand, that company has also, elevated founders, but also has become a cultural phenomenon, similar to Pop-Up Grocer. And Pop-Up Grocer is smaller, but it makes me think that buying these brands, these CPG brands, is cool, and it's maybe a signifier of it being in the know. And I think that that's beautiful that food is now becoming a cultural touchstone.
Yeah. Well, or more specifically, like grocery food as a cultural touchstone.
100%.
Because restaurants have forever, right? Chefs are rock stars. So I think that's really exciting as well. I mean, I love Erewhon, of course. It was an inspiration for Pop-Up Grocer because as a professional in the industry, I would go there and awe at all of the things on their shelves, like camel milk. What the heck is that?
Yeah.
And I was like, a place needs to exist for this purpose, for people to come here. Like, this can't be their business model. They need to sell a lot of stuff, right? They've got 12,000 square feet. So I love it. I think what's happening with Erewhon right now in terms of the virality probably goes back to the bigger comment that you've made about culture right now in terms of luxury goods and things that Erewhon sells, and the statement of identity that you can make by buying them is a bit more accessible than a luxury handbag.
Yeah.
And I think that's great for them. Personally, I would like to create a place that it's just as hypey and cool and a statement of identity, but a bit more accessible from a practical standpoint.
Yeah, and I think you have, and I think it's a great delineator between your brands, because I think, Erewhon, they have their smoothie counter too, which is like $20-$25 for a smoothie. And it's all great. It's like, I'm not trying to divide the two brands, but I think the accessibility of Pop-Up is certainly there. And I feel like having, like you say, hypey, I mean, the more of these brands that we can find in spaces just makes the net positive for the industry rise.
Right. Yeah. And making those opportunities really great through and through for them too.
Emily, how do you scout brands? Because I think there's a lot of founders who would covet being on the Pop-Up Grocer shelf and being in the rotation. And I'm sure along with all of your other roles, running a business, running the cafe, you have to restock every 90 days, which is remarkable, and it shouldn't be buried. That's a tremendous achievement to be able to reset your store every 90 days. How do you look at new brands? How do you receive them? How do you do tastings? What's up with that?
Yeah. I think, people ask me all of the time if I'm worried that we're going to run out of brands. And I can tell you that I'm worried about a lot of things. But actually, that's not one of them. I think particularly, given what's happened this year and how challenging this year has been for CPG, we still continue to see a lot of new products and a lot of innovation. So our pipeline is really strong. And we've used the same criteria pretty much since our start, which is it new? Is it interesting? Like, are they doing something novel? That's number one. Number two, are they responsibly sourcing their ingredients? So we look at every label and have, a pretty clear no list. And then three, does it look good? It's important to us. We have a small space. It's about the design and the experience. So the things on shelf, have to very subjectively align with that.
Yeah, it's a big mission statement. And I mean, do you do like a tasting with your team just to like taste the products and analyze the products?
Yeah, I mean, taste has become more important to us as we are more reliant on repeat habitual traffic. With the pop-ups, it was really just more like, is this something that could get people in the door? Is this something that could get, an initial purchase? And that's all that mattered to us. So I don't mean to say like taste never mattered.
Yeah.
Because we're talking about food here, and of course it does. But also sampling as a team of, 4, 500 SKUs every 90 days is a big task.
Yeah, you're being transparent. You aren't like literally tasting everything.
No, no. But I do do enjoy that part of the job.
Yeah.
For sure. It's not the worst. Yeah.
Not the worst. 2 shout outs I have to give, similar products in terms of size. Lexington Bakes, love him. And I love the change in format, scaling it down, making the brownies a little less expensive.
Yeah.
And then I don't know if you do Midday Squares. Do you have those?
I love them. We've worked with them before. Yeah. Such a cool story and group of founders.
Yeah.
And marketing energy.
Yeah.
I'm so envious of them if I could have an ounce of their energy, which I think is just youth. So one advantage of starting young.
Having the founders like illustrations on each package is amazing.
Yeah.
I love it. It's like very Gen Z. It feels.
Their commitment to growing that brand, I think, is unparalleled.
Yeah. And definitely pick up Lexington Bakes. They're around. I know he's at Erewhon as well. And truly my favorite brownie right now.
So decadently delicious.
And you can heat them up or you can eat them right out the cooler. I like heating them up personally. That's my.
I like the smaller size. It feels. I mean, I would eat the other size in one sitting. Don't get me wrong.
Sure, I have. I just did.
But yeah,
I love it. So I know money's tight, and like expansion plans are for. And you'd be kidding yourself to say that it's going to be like this growth. But I know you have a lot of ambition for Pop-Up Grocer, and you have a plan. So in the next like year or two, what do you hope the brand accomplishes? What do you want to open more brick and mortar? Do you want to go back to those pop-ups, those 30-day pop-ups in Miami and Denver that were really cool? What's your thought on that?
Yeah. I want to continue building the launch platform for emerging brands. If you create a product, I want it to be like, okay, obviously, automatically, I throw out my website, I throw out my Instagram, I throw out my TikTok, I go and Pop-Up Grocer. And for most brands, they do think like that already, which is awesome and so exciting. But the reality is we have one store in New York, so our reach is only so much. So I want more stores in New York. I want a national reach. I want stores across the country. I want international licensing. I want to have Pop-Up Grocer in the UK and Tokyo. I am ambitious. And I think that there's interest and demand, and that would be a huge win for these brands because launching at mass retail, as we know, is, if you're lucky enough to get accepted, is incredibly demanding from a resource perspective. Obviously, you have to pay for the inventory, but you've got slotting fees, you've got free fills, you've got mandated trade spend, you've got sampling, you've got buybacks. I mean, it's messed up, really.
No, we've talked
how
about it on our previous episode. I'm going to link to the show notes. And I should have said at the top, like we talked about how the grocery store is broken, my term, not yours, and how it's very cost prohibitive to get into a Costco or get into a Target. And like for me, like the thought is always put Pop-Up Grocer in Target. Yeah. Let you do the work. Let you be the capsule within the bigger brand and let you be the one that drives, because they're like so thirsty to work with brands with lots of virtue in mind, with lots of like diversity, inclusion, all great things. But I don't necessarily know if they nail it. I feel like I see kind of the same brands and some of it's personally not great. Yeah. Quality wise. So,
and ultimately it's just the display. I try to explain to all of these big guys that it's just not a lot of money. It's just design prowess and signage to make something feel special, which can make all the difference.
I mean, your Nordstrom's pop-up is a great example, and just seeing, your Memphis style and the way that your colors pop within kind of a staid paradigm, be it a department store or the Target grocery section, which we know, and just to see pop up there with all of your branding, and you've got such skill with that, it just seems like it's got to happen.
My fingers and toes are crossed over here.
Emily, and this is Taste. We ask guests about their discerning taste. So to close this interview, here's a little rapid fire, fast and furious taste check. Are you ready?
No.
The best fruit?
Persimmon.
Love that choice. The worst vegetable?
I love them all.
You have to say one.
Oh gosh, genuinely, fine. The worst is my favorite, Brussels sprouts.
Okay, you flipped it. I will accept that. That's a really crafty, canny way to get out of it. The best dessert?
Tiramisu.
The restaurant you are most excited to visit in the world?
Wallamalu Bakery. I follow them on Instagram. They're in Thailand. Basically just dying to go on a tour of bakeries and cafes and retail experiences anywhere in Asia.
I know you're...
Put me on a plane.
I know you're thinking about formatting and the way innovation just shines in places like Korea and Japan and Thailand. It's amazing.
Next level.
Favorite city outside America to visit for food?
London.
Is there one stop in London that you got to go to?
Oh, the River Cafe.
Oh, so good. What a choice. Your favorite big box grocery store?
Depends how you're defining big box, but Stu Leonard's.
Definitely a big box and incredible choice. If you are on the East Coast, you know if you know. Your favorite indie grocery store? I mean, these are competitors, of course, but you must be a fan of one or two.
Again, depends how we're defining indie, but I'd say Rainbow Acres.
Yeah, that makes sense. Explain it a little bit. I know that name.
Just absolutely the best health food store, like granola crunchy, true California vibe, and amazing discovery of products. Maybe that's just also because I'm an East Coaster, so when I go over to LA, they just have access to products and suppliers that we don't here. But great prepared foods. Love Rainbow.
Great store. Last one, your favorite sandwich?
Turkey. I'm a sandwich simplist. Tomato, mayo, cheese, whole wheat bread.
Mayo choice?
Honestly, lately, Chosen Foods avocado oil mayonnaise, something like that. Yeah, that's always in my fridge. But I love Duke's too.
Yeah, Duke's, but Chosen Foods is a very cool company.
Oh yeah,
I'm very into
great
that.
Condiments brand per our discussion earlier.
Yeah, wonderful. I love it. Emily Schildt, thank you so much for joining This Is Taste.
Thank you for having me.
PJ
Monte, welcome to This Is Taste. How are you doing, man?
I'm amazing. Fresh off a little Euro trip, so I'm acclimated back in the Bronx Riviera up in City Island. Between there and Montauk, I'm ready to hit the ground running.
You got some nice color on your face. You were in Puglia and Greece and Napoli for 48 hours.
Yes.
Well, let's go back to your family's original restaurant, Monte's Venetian Room in Gowanus. Now, I lived nearby in Carroll Gardens for almost 20 years, and I used to walk through Gowanus before Gowanus was like 50 new buildings, which is insane. But I always walked by Monte's, and I was always like, what's up with that place? It was a question.
Yeah.
It was not open all the time.
Yep.
And it's your namesake. It's your family. Tell me about, and it's important too. I must say, like, this is not at all negative. It's just like it's part of the fabric of this part of South Brooklyn. Tell me about it a bit.
Absolutely. So here's the reason why you ask what's up with that place. We're past the heyday. Yeah. It was before my time, right?
Yeah.
I grew up on the stories, like my grandfather and his 6 brothers were all born in the apartment upstairs. It started in 1906 when my family came from Avellino. My great-grandmother stirring sauce in a potbelly stove in the back. My great-grandfather, he was basically forging the papers for everybody, making sure everybody got, because they couldn't speak English or read or write. All the immigrants coming from Italy. And it was just kind of like a shop, and they were just cooking there. And then it turned into a restaurant. And then it kind of continued to evolve as it passed down to the next generation. So my great-uncle Nick, he was the only one that didn't go to World War II because he had bad eyes, which... who knows if he really had bad eyes? I don't know. Everybody else
he couldn't have signed the paper or pass the money along to whoever needed to do that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I might have bad eyes too if I had to get drafted.
Indeed. Tough time.
But the rest of them signed up, all went to World War II, and he kind of took over during that time and turned into Monte's Venetian Room. Uncle Nick, God bless his soul, great marketer,
Yeah.
And you know what? He rebranded it with Joe Carroll from Carroll Street, the namesake, painted the Venetian murals on the wall, red banquettes in the space, tablecloths, redid the space to make it a little bit, bougie, bring it up a notch, and rebranded as Monte's Venetian Room.
This is like the 50s. We're into the 50s.
This is, no, this is earlier.
Oh, yeah.
This is like the 40s probably.
Okay. Yeah.
30s, 40s, something like that. And he said, Monte's Venetian Room because the Gowanus canals remind me of the Venice canals. And let me tell you something. He never been to Venice in his life. I told you he's
saw
a good
the photos at least.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh.
But people ate it up, and want to know what? That was kind of when Monte's had its hot spot. That was when it became a hot spot. That's when it had its time. It's golden era. And you had the Rat Pack hanging out there all night, and you had the wise guys on one end of the bar and the politicians on the other, and it was a little tiny spot and a hole in the wall. My family went on to Gurney's in 1956. Uncle Nick, everybody come back from the war. My grandpa, they threw him an apron the day he got back from the war. So I get to work, put him behind the bar. Uncle Nick went out to Montauk with one of the customers in 1956 in an argument about who makes the best linguine clams. He said, in Montauk, we make the best linguine clams. I'm going to bring you out there. He said, we make the best linguine clams. Going back and forth. They get in a Cadillac drive out. 3 hours, end up in Montauk. They stop at Gurney's Inn, right? Which at that point was a little restaurant with 4 cottages only on the bluff.
Very end of Long Island.
The very, very end.
On the southern fork.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure it was like dirt roads when they got out there, you know? And at this point, they're drinking Canadian Club the whole way out. Yep. And they order a round of drinks. Mr. and Mrs. Gurney, who were the owners of the place, were Christian Scientists. The waiter says, we don't serve booze here. My Uncle Nick, you know, probably had a couple too many Canadian Clubs. So you ever want to sell this place, give me a call. You know, probably half a gesture, right?
Yeah.
And next thing you know, 2 weeks later, he gets a phone call, Mrs. Gurney. Oh, Mr. Gurney passed away. We'd love to sell this place. He said, how much? $200,000. He said, sure, I'll buy it. He didn't have $200,000. Hung up the phone, asked everybody at the bar for $20,000.
And that is how you raise capital in 1956.
Yeah, it's
in
a little
the
neighborhood
neighborhood.
these days.
So a lot of neighborhood guys, they got in on this deal, and you fast forward to 10 years ago, and Gurney's is sold, you know, by your family, but up until that point, and you grew up there. I'd love to get into that.
Yep.
As a young man growing up with this place, Gurney's, which has become you know, a really legendary spot, a party spot for sure. Mm-hmm. Definitely, if you're doing summers out east, you're going to a couple spots, Surf Lodge and definitely Gurney's. You know, we talked off mic. We don't need to go into the current situation, but you referred to it as restoration hardware. That feels like maybe Gurney's isn't in the spot it was when you were young, but it must have been fun.
Yeah. Listen, I always say, you know, I was like the Eloise of Gurney's, but they put my ass to work, you know?
I love that.
I got off the school bus to park cars, to serve the sauce, to flip the burgers, to pull chairs in the summertime. It was amazing, though. You know, I met all types of characters. And what was amazing about Gurney's was the same people came over and over and over again. And they didn't come there because it was this culinary destination, you know. So, no Michelin, we don't know what a Michelin star was, but we were running Gurney's, right? And it wasn't just because of the beauty of the location, which, by the way, is phenomenal. But it was more so like they would come there to see us, and we were excited to see them, you know? So growing up as a kid, every summer I'd be a cabana boy, valet. I'd work in the kitchen. I'd work behind the bar. And you would see the same families come and their kids, and you become friends with their kids, right? And they stayed forever. A lot of them were the people that loaned $20,000 to my great uncle back in the day, you know? They get grandfathered in some sort of a sweetheart deal. And it was very much, it was very enlightening to experience all these types of walks of lives, you know? Like you got your doctors that come there and their fancy cars, and then you have the guys that come from Brooklyn in their Cadillacs and, you know, shove $100 in your pocket to bring them ice, sweep the deck, park the car, whatever, you know? Yeah. And you got to meet a lot of amazing people there. And it was a big family business. You know, I go to the kitchen. That's my Uncle Chip was the chef. That's who taught me the sauce. And my dad, he's up in the office. My grandpa's in the wine cellar. My aunt's running the spa. That was home just as much as home was home for me.
Was it hard to sell it as a family? I mean, it sounds like there's like deep connections to it, but obviously the economics of Long Island changed dramatically in the past decade, and there had to be a moment of like you had to do something.
Yeah, and you know what? It needed some new life, right? It was complicated from a business perspective, right? So it wasn't just our call at the end of the day, exactly the fate of the place. But that being said, you know, Montauk, the tide had changed at this point. There was people out there, something was going to give. And the new people came in, whoever, you know, gave that final blessing, right, that made that deal happen, came in and did their thing. And that transition out of there was tough. Because I remember going, at that point in my life, I would go and sit on the beach with my friends. Yeah. And, you know, we'd have a little cabana zone and hang out.
Talk about the dream.
Yeah, it was, you know, then I finally really was getting the Eloise experience.
Yeah.
I didn't have to work there anymore. I could just
you were
enjoy
like,
the space.
you got the cabanas for like, the house rate.
Yeah, free.
No, exactly. Well, let me ask you, PJ. You were talking off mic, but I want to bring it up. You're not a nepo baby.
No,
there's no silver spoon. You're an entrepreneur, and we're gonna get to the sauce now. But you're up in BFA you had like 76 images on BFA, and that's like Insider Talk. It's like a wire service, like the cool wire service. So like you're like friends with people. Is that from the Gurney's days, or tell me about how do you like network, and how this social circle seems really cool?
Sure. That's a great question. And growing up in the Hamptons was such a special experience. I couldn't like compare it to anything else in the world. I have friends that grew up in New York and LA and so on and so forth. And I'm like, would not trade it. Yeah. Because you had the best of both worlds. You had New York City came to your backyard. Yeah. The summertime, you just a local kid. Everybody that really lives in the Hamptons, for the most part, especially when I was growing up, they're blue collar, right? They're the people who catch the fish, who cut the lawns. Who
set up the cabanas.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Right? And my family is a very hardworking family. So while everybody has had the assumption, and we did have a great reputation in town, as honestly we really deserve to, because we really kind of pioneered the space in a big way at that time. But like, people, oh, your family sold gurneys, you must be rich kid. I'm like, I wish.
Yeah.
I wish. Yeah. It's not how it's sifted out. I'm not going to get into the paperwork, but not to go there. More so, it's just in the summertime, you're exposed to like the best of not just New York City, but of the world, a very cultured clientele. You're meeting such incredible people from all walks of lives. And so when I was in high school, some of my older friends that were growing up in the Hamptons as well, they started kind of bridging the gap of, instead of the city kids coming to the Hamptons and going to the clubs out there, they kind of like were working in the clubs and brought it to the city.
Yeah.
And they made a name. And I was like, that seems cool. I'm going to do that.
Word.
And so I was DJing and hosting parties and everything else. When I was like 16, 17 years old, I was coming into the city and, out at nightclubs over there. And then back in the Hamptons, I was working in nightclubs underage,
It's only the age to work in a nightclub, I feel. Yeah, exactly. Right? If you're like a local guy.
Listen, they were putting me through the back door if I had to get in. But through the nightlife world, right, which was hospitality, which is why I was pretty good at it, right? Because it's taking care of people. And that was what was drilled into my head my whole entire life. Growing up in Gurney's was like customer first kind of service always. And when I'm in the nightclub, I'm making sure everybody has a full drink. That was kind of what it was. And I was like, this is more fun than pulling chairs on the beach,
Yeah.
And I'm getting paid. Awesome, right? Yeah. And bridging the gap of like New York City to the Hamptons and then meeting those people in those rooms, which it's like you put the people culturally together in the Hamptons in certain rooms. You have a very unique, very special
influential group.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that's where the BFA comes from.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And
sorry, I'm like dwelling on that.
No, that's embarrass you. But that was my life before I started making the sauce.
Well, good segue. We're this far in the episode, and I hope you've stuck with us because we wanted to set this up because this is a food show, and we're here to talk about food. And really, PJ, you've launched a product, and I've tasted it several times. It's a terrific sauce. It's a jarred tomato sauce. In fact, our friends at Food and Wine did a taste test and described it as the best sauce of all sauces. Yeah. So for our listener, describe the MONTE'S sauce. What's it taste like? Why is it special?
Yeah, so I'm going to tell you why it's special. And I learned the hard way. I learned the recipe from my Uncle Chip. This is post my fun time in my life, right? I died a big ego death and got thrown in the apron and put back to work by my family when I was around 27, 28 years old. After we sold Gurney's, we had a little restaurant upstate. I thought I was going up to like help them with their social media and make this place cool. They've stuck me in the kitchen.
What spot is this?
This was MONTE'S Tap Room upstate. MONTE'S local kitchen and tap room.
Nice. What city?
It was in Armenia.
Yeah.
So like my family chose the like not cool part of the Hudson Valley. Yeah. I was like, Hudson's over there. Like that's where all the cool guys are.
My guy, I live in Orange County like full time, so I'm in like I'm in the uncool part myself, and I think it is the coolest part. Frankly.
Well, there's something to be said about it being cool by not being the cool part, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So, but either way, my family doesn't know how to stop working, right?
Yeah.
They sold gurneys. I'm like, go to Boca, like, and what do? Open another restaurant, right? And they had their moment. They're trying to find a little bit of like their identity upstate and going in a few different directions. And they were doing good, and they were in this little town, and they asked me to come up and help out. And I went up there one weekend thinking I was going to just help them do their website or social media, make a playlist, and pop back down to the city and get back to having fun, right? Yeah. And they put me right to work. But that was the first time in like probably 5 years that I had the family sauce again. I remember very vividly, I had a veal parmesan at the end of the shift, and I was like, I got to get back to the city now. Get me out of here. And I had the veal parm, and I was like, this, like flashback, like cliche. It tastes exactly the same as when I was 5 years old. At Gurney's, and my Uncle Chip was in the kitchen cooking it, and he made it exactly the same. And I was like, wait, this is special. This is really good. And Rayo's at this point, I've been watching what they were doing. My family talked about making the sauce. And
You've been watching what they're doing by exiting for like, a couple $100 million?
Yeah, the 400 plus. Yeah. At that point, I'm like, yeah, I see what you guys are doing.
I see what you're doing.
Yeah.
Little Bronx restaurant you.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. But I like your sauce better than Rayo's. Rayo's is great. Like, listen, I buy Rayo's. It's a cool product, but I like yours better.
Yeah, thank you.
Standing there.
And I'll tell you why. So I'll get into that. After that light bulb moment, I studied. I dropped everything. I moved upstate. I apprenticed under my Uncle Chip, and I watched him make the recipe. He wouldn't just give it to me. Mm-hmm. It took time. And do you want to know what? As he should, He spent his whole life perfecting this recipe. That was passed on to him. That was so on and so forth. And I finally nailed it one day. And we make our sauce in the factory now. We drive our factory crazy because we make it exactly how we make it in the restaurant. Most people get drums of tomatoes. If you get drums of tomatoes, they're probably already crushed or pureed, and that's because they're the B, C, and D tomatoes, right? Those are the throwaways almost. Those are the uglies, let's call them, right? Mm. Ours, we're getting number 10 cans, the most expensive number 10 cans that you get in a restaurant. That's what we use in our sauce today, the same exact ones. One of every 3 from the harvest.
Those Stanislavs from California?
No comment on where they come from.
We're getting to that part.
I can't tell you where they come from. Come on.
Fair enough.
But I will say they are California tomatoes that we use, and we're very proud to be American-made, American-grown, domestic product, Italian-American brand. I'm really trying to bring that reputation back up a little bit.
I mean, American domestic canned tomatoes are as good as any.
I find them to be superior and more consistent.
Yeah.
Right? So what we get and what we use aside, and then on top of that, our process is really what makes it super special. So imagine this. You cook Sunday gravy once in a while, right?
Yeah, for sure. I love that.
So when it's sitting on the stove for 3 hours, right?
Yeah.
What color is it when it comes in? And what color is it when it comes out? It's going to be dark red and tart, and it's not going to be bright and fresh. You're not going to have that vibrancy in the flavor profile when it's sitting on the stove for 3 hours, right? And most people cook in 2,000-gallon batches. Why? Efficiency.
Yeah.
Most people use dried herbs or IQF. We use fresh produce, fresh garlic shallots, onions, fresh basil twice in our recipe. We do it at 2 different points. We bring it all together. We cook in pretty much 1/10 of the size of the batches that most other brands cook in. And we only use the best tomatoes coming out of cans. We drive our factory crazy, which, by the way, makes it an expensive product. We pay to play, for sure.
Yeah.
It's a challenge that we've been dealing with, that we're kind of overcoming that hurdle right now by finally hitting like points of volume that we have the leverage to negotiate.
Well, let's talk about that, because clearly this is a business that you want to scale, potentially exit, because, and I'm saying that you're not, but I'm thinking, like, looking at that Rayo's case.
Sure.
There's some money on the table. People love sauce. So how do you scale? Because you're telling me this process and it sounds great.
Yeah.
But like when you've got like 700 ShopRite orders, 700 stores.
Yep.
How do you do it?
It was hard at first. It was really hard at first because a lot of factories were just like, no, we're not opening number 10 cans. No, we're not using fresh produce. No, we're not doing small batches. And then I found a few that did, right? And it worked with some. Some come and gone. I outgrew most of them is basically really what happened. And I sit there on quality control. And it wasn't until this year where we kind of hit the tipping point of the leverage of the volume of business that they were like, okay, we need your business. We want your business. Mm-hmm. And I was like, great, because at this point, that allowed me to go to every single person along my supply chain and say, listen, I could commit to buying a lot of olive oil, which is 3 times the price right now, to our tomato people. Listen, who's got the best price? Who could give me the best price on our tomatoes? Fresh produce, so on and so forth. And then, exploring your other options. I'm not married to anybody now, right? Except the sauce. Right?
Yeah, the sauce is going to speak. Okay, so I'm hearing a lot of things. I'm hearing that you haven't deviated from this ethic, but you are scaling up.
Yeah.
So you're at a tipping point. And so where are you available and how many channels right now?
I'm glad you asked. So right now we're in about 500 stores.
Damn. And
by the end of the year, we'll be in about 1,000. And where we kind of cracked the code is we're coming out with the big jar, the 24-ounce jar.
Yeah.
In a large national retailer. Very excited about it.
What's it rhyme with?
When does this drop?
Right. We don't need to go there. I don't know when it's going to drop, so we don't need to go there.
Yeah. But actually multiple large, banners that are rolling out the 24-ounce jar. Between that, working on that cost per ounce and breaking that down, working on our supply chain, working on the leverage, negotiating all that. I'm scrappy. I'm not taking the sucker price. I'm going to beat you down. I got 20 people I'm calling. If you give me a price that sounds too expensive, I'm calling everybody with the Val at the end of their name that sells peppers or tomatoes in the Northeast.
I love it.
And I'm finding my price. But with the volume as well, it's a win-win for everybody across the board. And now we're going to be cost competitive with every other premium sauce in the space.
So at 24 ounces, those are sizable jars.
Those are the normal size. Yeah. Most people, that's the Rayos, that's the Carbone, that's the Michael's actually does the 36, which I like in like a family
36
style.
36 is cool, but I liked your hand size pocket size.
I love the 16 ounce.
I mean, those were that was a big appeal.
Yes, agreed.
Because first off, no waste.
Right.
So you got that like extra, 8 ounces that tends to just sit there. Because putting the whole 24 is a little much.
You're taking the words right out of my mouth.
I know. So but is that just because the retailers are kind of forcing you to do 24s?
I would say it's the retailers, but it's really the customer.
Okay.
At the end of the day, like when you're shopping for your family and you're looking at sauce on the shelf and you're looking at our product, which in a 16-ounce jar is maybe the same price, if not sometimes more expensive than a 24-ounce jar, right? You have to make that decision. You're thinking about what else you have in your cart. You got the eggs, you got the butter, you got this. Okay, you ding, 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 ding. It's like it's running up in your head and you're like, I don't know, right? I've never seen this brand before. Yeah. Maybe I have. I heard it's good. But I could save it's going to stretch a little further. I could save $1 or $2. And so the 16-ounce, I loved it. But it just, at some point, you have to cater to the masses in a way if you really want to build a scalable business.
I get it. And it makes sense. And I hope you keep some of those small jars available as
I'm going
as a novelty. Okay, so are you in production often with this 500 store order going to 1,000?
Yeah, we're going from a little more than quarterly, in this year production to we're probably going to be producing every month next year.
Yeah.
Or actually starting Q4. We're probably going to be producing every month. And that it's taking a big leap right now from where we've been to where we're going. Just in the first 60 days of this year, we lapsed last year's sales, right? And we're hitting a nice multiplier this year, and we're going to hit a nicer multiplier next year, which is...
So, PJ, tell me, how do you break through in this hyper-competitive field? I mean, you're looking at your grocery store aisle with sauces, and you've got Carbone, you've got Rayos, you've got Meatball Shop, you've got Paul Newman staring at you, which is the one I grew up on.
Sure.
which is not very good for the record. That's okay. Sorry, Mom. But I feel like this is a very hard category, and you've already been able to crack through. Your great personality, but you aren't there selling it at the.
I wish I could be in every aisle.
I wish you could too. You're
I wish
good at
I
it.
could be in every
but
aisle.
How did it happen?
So it's really tough, right? It's really tough, but guess what? I love it. Like I'm stubborn. I'm a Monte.
Yeah.
We don't know how to stop. I just keep going. And you want to know what? I saw the space, as it stood when I entered the space, right? And I did my homework. I'm a geek, low key. I'm a nerd. I listen to the podcasts. I do the tutorials of this, that, and the third. I taught myself how to do every single program.
CRM.
Yeah.
You're like
CRM. Okay. YouTube for 6 hours. I'm learning it. I'm building the website. I'm making the label. I'm learning about nutritional facts and schedule processes and how does distribution work when I was still making it by hand out of the back of the restaurant, sell out of the trunk of my car, literally. And so I've set my goal on it. I focused on it and I just kept going. And people in this space will tell you all the time, if you don't have a 60% margin or 50% margin out the gate, just don't do it. You're never going to get there. And I was like, no, sorry, quality first. I'm staying true to a family recipe. I'm sticking to it. And guess what? I figured it out, right? We got to healthy margins and a competitive price point coming, next month. And we did that. I fought tooth and nail to do that. Sure, it took me 4 years, but guess what? I stuck to it. And then I also saw the space being very one-dimensional. You had your legacy brands, and bless them, Michael's, Rayo's, right?
Yeah.
You have these guys in the space that are been around forever, Carmine's, and everybody's got a sauce if you had a restaurant. Mm-hmm. I was like, sure, we have the legacy too. And then you have the more creative, innovative brands that are they're there trying to create new flavors and, I just don't see.
Like basil boba or some shit like that.
Yeah, I just don't see Maria from New Jersey that's a mother of 4 picking this thing up. That's, I can maybe see it moving in, some of the mom and pops and the cool guy shops. And that's great. God bless. That's where we built our brand. But I was we got both. I was I came into this space, prior to the last 5 years in the food and beverage space, it wasn't very cool.
Yeah.
And I was surrounded by cool people my whole life.
I met you in Los Angeles at the Snack Shot Andrea Hernandez event. I want to get a sense of how do you feel about your fellow founders in this food space? I feel like you are at a really cool juncture of community. Because obviously, if you got an olive oil guy and a chocolate guy and a coffee guy, you're not competing.
Yep.
You're you should be
sticking together,
staying together. And I saw a bunch of you in that room in LA in the Arts District, and I was like, this is cool.
Agreed, 100% agreed, and it's super refreshing that I dove into this, and when I started it, it wasn't as cool as it is now. Now it's getting cool. I'm it's refreshing to see. I have a bunch of friends in the space, and it's great to have people that have similar alignment, both from a professional standpoint, and we help each other out and make introductions or give guidance. Hey, you spoke to this person. Well, give me a pulse on them. Or where should we go from here? How did you crack to the next code? There's a lot of things that nobody teaches you in this business, right? They're raise money, raise money, raise money. I was okay, we raise money. And then nobody tells you raise credit, Okay, you raised $1 million. You got a 50% margin. How much? You got overhead too. How are you supposed to make any money off that, right?
Yeah.
Who's giving you a line of credit? Who's going to bankroll you, right? Who's going to allow you to continue to grow this company without selling your whole company by the time you want an exit? If you don't own any of your company, what's that exit?
Well, yeah, all you got is your face and maybe some ego. But
and a lot of agita, running the business. It's so I've been very particular about who I've taken as an investor and how I've structured my company from that perspective because of these fellow founders who also appreciate the the cool factor, the fun factor, the interesting, what people are doing are interesting and disruptive in the space, and we just all collaborate together. Like, if we're doing a block party, then we could get the wine sponsor, we could get the NA sponsor, we could get the pizza shop that's hosting us to put my sauce on their pizza, and we could put 10 brands, and then we have it's like success in numbers,
Let's talk about
together.
Let's talk about food service. Is that in your future to get Monte's into, I don't know, like some of the fast casuals, maybe some restaurant spot,
Yes, it's definitely on the horizon. Like, it's not our top priority at the moment, even though I'm always trying to do the next 10 things.
Yeah.
And I have a great team that keeps me grounded, But that dreaming, and then they kind of tie me down like I'm a blimp. I'm like, reel me in a
That's what
little
you pay
bit.
them for.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so we got to focus at the things that are right here that are most important. But food service, I would love to find the right partner that would justify the leap into food service, right? Margins are trickier, your case pack. Every Italian restaurant makes their own sauce.
Yeah.
So
it's kind of not great if you're buying jarred unless you're like a real big box place.
Yeah, but also it's not going to be jarred technically, right? And actually, matter of fact, this is where I see it, right? We sell in jars, literally in jars, to restaurants. It doesn't make any sense from an economics.
No, they should be in big Tetra packs.
They're burning cash doing it, but they get to say we sell our mozzarella sticks at Ray's with Monte's sauce, right?
Mm-hmm.
And guess what? I love the guys at Ray's. This is a great collaboration. We launched it at Super Bowl a couple years back. It's on the menu still to this day. We do Uncle Paulie's all the time, chicken parm sandwiches.
Oh, really? In LA?
Paulie's my man for a million years before either of us were really in the food business to the capacity that we are now. And so it's just a natural connection. We've done probably 10 pop-ups together since I think I sold my first case outside of New York to Uncle Paulie.
That's exciting. Can I go on an aside right here? I heard Future wore a Paulie's hat or something, and he sold
Travis Scott.
It was Travis Scott wore the hat.
Yeah.
And he sold large bands, 100K or something in merch.
Absolutely. No. Yeah, Paulie's moving merch.
Yeah.
And we're moving merch too.
No doubt.
Yeah.
You have good merch, actually, of course.
Thank you.
It's that's a whole nother revenue stream.
The thing is, it's not just about, this is what was stale about the business when I saw it. You sell cereal, you sell granola, you sell pasta, you sell tomato sauce, whatever it is, right? That's all you do. I make shirts, I do parties, I do events, we do collaborations. Yeah. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't have to make sense. I like to create, I like to consider myself an artist of sorts that my medium is food and community.
Yeah.
Bringing people together really comes back to the hospitality. It's what we sell is Sunday dinner in a jar. And to boot, it's the best one. It's great. It's fresh. It's made with care. But what we're doing as a brand, whether it's wearing a T-shirt, hosting a block party, having people over and putting people together, introducing them over a meal, having an experience that they might not have grown up, that I was so blessed to grow up with every Sunday as a tradition in my life that I carried on when I moved to the city with my friends. That was my new family.
Oh.
And I still do it to this day.
Yeah.
I still do it
Your
to this
Sunday
day.
tradition?
I do not miss a Sunday unless I'm... Even in Italy, when I was just in Italy last week, I was still doing Sunday dinner.
I love it. Let me ask you, you expanded to pasta.
Yes.
We haven't even talked about that. I mean, is this a little bit of window dressing, or are you going hard after pasta too? Because dry pasta, talk about an even more competitive field.
Absolutely. You're 100% right. Pasta on shelf is what, $2?
Yeah.
$3? This is the thing, though. I personally had a journey with pasta that I was I'm a sauce pasta guy. I'm wearing a Rotelli made out of 24 karat gold around my neck right now for 15 years. This is my life. And I'm I don't really eat pasta at restaurants because I got to go home afterwards.
Yeah.
I feel terrible, right? And I was why is that? But I could go to Italy, and everybody else that's gluten intolerant can go to Italy and eat pasta all of a sudden for 10 days and lose 5 pounds, right? And I was what is going on here? And so it's literally 3.5 years I started, how hard could it be to private label some pasta, right? We got the sauce going. Why don't we this is a natural line extension. It took me 3.5 years to find a place that does it the way that they do it in Italy. And along that process, I understood and learned what is the difference. In America, most pasta, I'd say if I had to put a number on it, 95+ % of pasta is made with the nutritional equivalent of Wonder Bread. It's bleached flour, processed flour, artificial nutrients, Teflon die extruded, and fast baked dried, right? Efficiencies, right? The pasta space right now is where Ragu and Classico was before Rayo's in America, not in Italy, in America.
Yeah.
And I went back over there. I'm going, what's the difference? I studied this, and I came back, and I found this little shop in Arkansas, of all places, and that was buying my sauce. Through Fair, we're shipping it, and I just flagged up on my email, and I'm like, oh, check out the shop. I'm like, wait a minute, they're doing it right. Organic durum semolina and water only. The other guys, they have 10 ingredients on their label. Riboflavin, niacin, vitamin this, vitamin that. Artificial ingredients because you have to have some nutritional value, but then you fast bake it and you cook it all off, and then you're cooking your pasta before you cook your pasta, right? So I was like, organic durum semolina has all these nutrients in it already. Why are we overcomplicating the process? Sure, efficiencies, cost, make it cheaper. I don't believe in that, right?
Yeah.
And you're right. My pasta's on shelf right now, $7.99, $8.99, right? It's expensive. That's the same price as Giuseppe Coco or Sataro, one of the imports, right? Yeah. And people want to think that it's expensive like that because they had to import it and pay this. No, it's because good grain costs money. When this gets harvested, where I get my pasta right now, in America, we're doing it the same way they do it in Italy. And that's my mission. And I have to lead with the education.
Yeah.
That is why your stomach hurts.
Yeah,
you're eating garbage.
It is, and you got to look at the package and see, like, the fewer the better for pastas. I've heard that, and I've said it on the show. Now, what shapes are you doing right now? What are the shapes?
We basically invented 2 new shapes.
Damn.
Yeah. So it's rotellini right now. If you look at it one way, you can look at it like a wave, which I love.
Yeah.
Right? And if you look at it from like the other direction, it almost looks like a little Roman pillar. Love.
Yeah.
And then there's the trebucchi, which is, it's like 3 holes, and it's kind of like if you had 3 little pennies kind of like glued together in a way, right?
Oh, that sounds great.
And so we have...
Surface area is important with the dried pasta.
Surface area is extremely important. Each shape is different for each dish,
Yeah.
And so we have 2 right now. We did a collaboration with Stout with this handbag where we did her own pasta. It was more of like a gifting thing for the people, but like we created the bronze dye, not Teflon, bronze dye that leaves the rough surface on the pasta in her exact font that said the STAUD, the letters in the bag.
That's fun. I love that. That's fun. So you're doing this as like, you're definitely like planting seeds. Obviously sauce is your game, but eventually there's going to be a Monte's pasta line that's absolute fire, right?
Right now, this is what I love about it too, by the way, like sauce is booming. We have the capacity to scale that I don't see any ceiling to that, right? With the pasta, we partnered with a small manufacturer that technically is more of like a mom and pop shop that manufactures pasta, not really a manufacturer first. Yeah. But we partnered with them, and they're amazing people making an amazing product, and they're becoming more and more of a manufacturer. And that's off of the support of our business, where right now we're at max capacity. And like I just got off the phone with them the other day. We just bought a bigger drying rack.
Yeah.
That's the part that's the holdup, because, these other guys fast bake it. It's in and out in like maybe 20 minutes. One shape takes 24 hours for me. One shape takes 18 hours. You got to control the humidity.
Yeah.
There's a lot of factors that make it an art form of making pasta the right way, and you taste the difference. You crack the bag open, you can smell the semolina, and you feel better. Not only does it taste better, you feel better.
So where do you sell these pastas? How are we buying these?
We sell online.
Yeah.
We've been by design slow rolling it out into the marketplace as we continue to increase our manufacturing output. So like in like the next 3 months, probably top of the year, we'll be able to be in like as many stores as we can, because output goes up, our costs will come down a little bit, so we'll be at least at a competitive price point to the other premium pasta brands. But like, hey, if you want to spend $2 on Barilla and have a stomach ache, you and your family, like that's your choice.
Shots fired. I love that. That's actually like, anecdotal. Like,
yeah.
Listen to that. Take it in. Do you experience something similar? You be the judge.
Right.
All right. You mentioned in passing fare, and I'd love to get a sense about how this platform, which is a true decacorn,
Sure.
that is a true mover for CPG. How does that work for you? And has it been a good experience working with Fare?
I've truly loved working with Fare in many, many ways. I would say, full transparency, my product is a really hard one to sell on Fare. Like, we have to take it out of the pack, repack it in a new box. So we had to design this padding. It might break in transit. We deal with breakage all the time. Then you're losing money on that sale. But luckily, we've over time refined that process, and breakage is very minimal now. The thing is, it's expensive.
Yeah.
So like, on e-commerce, sometimes we get people, oh my God, you're charging $14 for shipping on $40 a sauce, a 6-pack. And I'm like, I don't make up the price. Talk to USPS.
Yeah.
I don't. And matter of fact, $14 is our averaged out across the country because we're really paying $25 in California.
Yeah.
And that's where people are buying it online.
A lot of people are buying them there.
Because we're in, we might be in 350 stores in New York, but we're in like 150 throughout the rest of the country, right? So the further away that you're shipping it, these are the customers that you're paying through the nose to ship it. And so for Fare, when it comes down to like that being the distributor, right? You have to add like $2 a jar on your cost, which is either going to put us on shelf extremely expensive and it's hard to build. But that being said, I love it as a means to connect to stores that we would never have access to.
Agree.
I couldn't have sold to the store in Arkansas that's making my pasta right now if it wasn't for Fare, right? I'm selling to all over the country through Fare, and it's a streamlined automatic process, goes through my 3PL. I don't have to lift a finger. We click.
We're talking about $2. Look at what we're paying for food.
Yeah.
So like, I know there's price sensitivity across all of grocery, but like if you're on a shelf for like even $11 in Arkansas and it's good.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, it's like cheaper than going out to most restaurants. So like, there must be some frustration that people are so price sensitive to $1 or $2 for a jar of pasta that is like truly the best per Food and Wine. And myself, I have very good sauce. So like, how do you square that?
Yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly. And what I would say to that is like, I wish everybody was like me and you, and cared about quality and paid attention to it, and also maybe have the means to afford it. Is the reality, right? We live in New York City. We go to LA. We go to
bubbles.
Bubbles. We live in bubbles, right?
Yeah.
And like, we can go and pay $18 for a Negroni and not think twice about it, or spend $150 per person on dinner on a regular basis, and that's regular.
Yeah,
it's regular
in this day and age in New York. Absolutely.
Yeah, but you go like 2 hours in almost any other direction. Hopefully not towards the Hamptons, but
yeah.
But a lot of places in between, just the reality is not everybody, like, it does matter, that extra dollar. And you want to know what? I agree with you. I pay for quality. I happily pay for quality. Like, that is what I care about. I'm a food guy. I'm a wine guy. I'm going to pay the extra couple bucks to have a good experience, to have a good product. But some people just like also got their mortgage to pay.
Absolutely, point taken, and absolutely great to clarify that, because we don't want to be elitist at all on the show, and like, we're not trying to. You're shooting us out of our bubble, and I think my true point is that if you're going to take the time to actually make dinner, wouldn't you want your jarred sauce and do a jarred sauce? Like, you might make a sauce from scratch, and that's cool too. Wouldn't the $2 be worth it, even if it was your last $2? I'm just saying, in terms of just like thinking about food. And thinking about having this great meal that you're making for your family.
Absolutely. The thing is, I feel like people don't maybe appreciate that moment as much. There's convenience. And this goes into a deeper problem, right? That goes back to like the industrialization of everything in America. Like I just came back from Italy. Like the pasta that I'm making is $1.50 or euro, 150 euros, right? At 1.50 euros.
Yeah.
It's like that's $2, right? For the best pasta in the mercado, right? I got buffalo mozzarella and some mortadella and some bread at the little, corner shop right there. I'm like, it was like €4. I'm going out and eating langoustines that I'll go over to Maria right now and pay $95.
You're right.
And I get like two. I get two of those shrimps, and it's half as good. And these ones are fresh, right? And my whole meal with the whole bottle of wine was €65.
Yeah.
And so there's a disconnect, right? Everything is driven here, and the mentality in the CPG space. When I'm talking to buyers and distributors, they're asking how low can you go, not how good is your product.
Right.
And that is the problem, right? That is the problem, and it's not wine, where people who drink wine appreciate wine, and you could have a $10 bottle here, and you could have a $10,000 bottle of Caymus next door, right? And you could have both customers in that store.
Yeah.
And some people understand and appreciate the whole spectrum there. When it comes to grocery and like things that people assume as like a fundamental, basic household pantry item, they almost have like it's a lot more inelastic. It's not as elastic. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, it's the most price sensitive items. These basic items. We're like conditioned that a gallon of milk and a loaf of bread are like the tent pole, and like the key factors for our economy's health.
Yeah,
it's like written into like all of our poli-sci. Like it's
absolutely.
Yeah.
And you want to know what's funny? It's so ingrained in us. I think this is a very American thing, by the way, right? Like this is why pasta is Wonder Bread, right? This is why Wonder Bread is Wonder Bread and not a nice fresh baguette from the bakery, right? It's how can you make more, faster, cheaper, right? That's the whole mentality. And it's not like looking to save money. They're not making enough money to afford the good things, right? It's like I'll go out and spend $250 in Negronis and snacks at a bar, but then I'll be in the grocery store and I'll be like, sometimes I put it back on the shelf because there's $1 more.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wait a minute, I'm not even cheap.
But you've been conditioned.
I've been conditioned. That's exactly what it is. And it's like I'm not, how am I going to change that conditioning? And like, I do my best.
To remind our listeners, Americans pay between 12 and 14% of their salary towards food. When you go to places like Japan and Korea, where it's in the 40s, you go to like Scandinavia, it's in the 50s.
Yep.
We just as a culture do not pay as much for food. Absolutely, those are facts. And like, it's important, and you bring it up, PJ, this is an American thing.
Yeah.
And you can have all the great launches and all the shiny toys and all the great social media, but when it comes down to it at the grocery store, when you're talking about scaling these CPG products, the price sensitivity is ruthless.
Yeah.
And you've articulated it well with the why.
Yeah.
Here.
And I think that my goal right now, and part of the ethos of our company, shifted a little bit from preserving the family heritage and legacy and recipe to regaining the reputation of quality to Italian American products. Like this isn't, Chef Boyardee. This isn't, Olive Garden. This isn't a chicken parm bigger than your head, right? A quality Italian American brand that does it the way they do it there, with simplicity, quality, without pretension, though.
Yeah.
Without pretension. My goal, somebody asked me the other day, you're in Erewhon and ShopRite. How does that make any sense? Why'd you decide to go into a value store? I said, because everybody deserves to have this product. It might be a slow mover over there, but you want to know what? I'm working day in and day out, like all night long. I'm making 250 phone calls trying to save a penny on my label, a penny on my tomatoes, a penny on my olive oil. I'm on vacation in Italy negotiating olive oil prices. I'm like, I need a whole container. I need to save 5 cents a liter, right? Because that way I can be in ShopRite at the price point that makes people go and buy. And I got there. I'm getting there,
Yeah, no, it's real. When you were in Puglia, were you negotiating olive oil prices when you were up in the?
Of course, I couldn't stop. I was with this guy Vito, who's an amazing guy. Yeah. Vito, he's 4th generation cheesemaker, right? Earlier that day, we were in Matera, right, which is the second oldest caves known to civilization. and we had a 7-course cheese meal, right?
Yeah.
Different cheeses that he made in different ways, shapes, and forms with local wines. And the dessert wine was a cave-aged blue cheese that he made that was soaked in the local wine with the grapes on it, right? And I joked. I was like, "Oh, what cave did you age this in? The ones in Matera?" He was like, "No, but we can do this." And I was like, you didn't think of this? I'm like, dude, like we need to get this going right now.
That's great. I love that. PJ, in addition to all of the CPG talk, you're launching a capsule collection with Bloomingdale's.
Yeah. That's
cool.
Yeah.
That's different.
Yeah.
What does that mean? What are you doing? What are the products? What's in the line?
So they came to our booth at Fancy Food Show. They loved our merch that we've done in the past, and they were like, right, they came to us pretty much. They like really kind of beelined, and we recently did the Stout collaboration with the Tommy bag, which is sold out and resold out and is probably already pre-sold out again for the next drop. And we launched it at the restaurant in Montauk. The with Vogue hosted the event. It was amazing, beautiful event. That's where we did the pasta. We linked up with my buddy Daniel from Alimentari Flanor. He made beautiful. He had the guys stretching mozzarella and shaving the. So we dropped the bag. We've been doing merch since the beginning of this. Like I was making T-shirts since I was 16 years old. When we launched Monte's, our first collaboration was with Noah NYC, and we dropped a jar and a shirt that sold out in a day during pandemic. We've been doing merch, and it's been like Uncle Paulie's, like the right people. Put it on the right people, or the right people are buying it. It's a great exposure for the brand, but it's just also making the brand much more dimensional, right? And so they came to the booth. They loved the merch. They loved the whole booth that we had, and they loved the product as well. And they were like, let's get together and let's talk. And we have a Italian capsule, or Italian carousel, excuse me. Oh. So they have like building a mercato in the store for like a 10-week, I believe, program online and in store in the 59th Street store. They're like all the Italian big designers are participating in it, and they wanted us to carry the merch. And I was
so cool.
Yeah, I was like, I'll pump out a collection for you by tomorrow.
Thank you so much for joining This Is Taste.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Hi everyone, my name is Duan Wing. I'm the chef and restaurant owner of Didi in West Hollywood and the author of the cookbook Di Ang. So coming into this busy fall season, my book really caters to those that are looking to add bold Vietnamese flavors to their dinner parties. My recipes are really approachable for home cooks of any skill levels. And 2 recipes that you can't skip in the book is the honey glazed shrimp and the Vietnamese coffee creme brulee, because these recipes really show you how flavorful my recipes are without a ton of work. And my inspiration for writing this cookbook is actually my little sister, because I wanted to pass down something to her that she can use to take care of herself. And if it's easy enough for my little sister to make, anyone can make it.
This Is Taste is hosted by Eliza Abarbanel and me, Matt Rodbard. The show is produced by Shalia Harris and Pat Stango and edited by Clayton Gumbert. Theme music by Steve Rydell. Visit Taste online at tastecooking.com and make sure to subscribe to our newsletter for updates on all cool things that are happening.